People used to say America first. But after new tariffs, some now say America homeless first. It may sound harsh, but the numbers tell the story. Millions cannot afford rent. Thousands of stores are closing. Many big U.S. cities are starting to look like ghost towns. It feels strange. The United States is still called the world's #1 economy. But if you walk through New York or Los Angeles, it feels like a cheap disaster movie. Tents line the sidewalks. People sleep on the streets. Their empty stares remind you this is real life, not a film. In this video, we will look at 10 American cities that may fall into decline. And we will see why the American dream now looks more like a roadside tent. This video is based on reports and expert analysis. Let's start with San Francisco. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is over $3,000 a month. That is like buying a used pickup truck every month just to live indoors. At the same time, about 8,000 people live in tents in the city once called the world's technology capital. San Francisco was once the home of billion-dollar startups and new ideas. Today, it looks more like a giant display of sleeping bags. The tall buildings of Facebook, Twitter, and Uber have empty offices. Elevators are silent. Cafes close early because there are not enough customers. This makes people ask a hard question. Is this the future that America first promised? One big reason is tariffs. When the U.S. put high taxes on equipment and parts from Asia, small startups could not get cheap supplies. Many failed before they could grow. Big tech firms moved to Texas, Arizona, or even Canada. But middle-class workers with loans and mortgages could not just move away. One couple in San Jose both worked in tech. Even as their company cut jobs, they tried to stay. But rent was $3,500 a month. They also had 2 kids in school. After 9 months, they had to move back in with their parents. Their American dream ended in disappointment. Stories like theirs are now common in the Bay Area. San Francisco once showed that hard work could bring stability. Now, even a lifetime of work can end in a sleeping bag on the sidewalk. If such a rich city is in this condition, imagine New York. In Manhattan, over 20% of offices are empty. Skyscrapers that once glowed all night are now dark and quiet. The Big Apple is rotting from the inside. Tariffs hit New York's strengths: finance and luxury goods. Imported handbags, Swiss watches, and French wine all became more expensive. It may sound like only rich people suffer. But the effect spreads to everyone. When wealthy shoppers stop buying, stores on Fifth Avenue close. Restaurants lose business. Taxi drivers lose customers. Workers lose jobs. One family in Queens shared their story. The husband worked in a hotel. The wife had a part-time job in a luxury shop. When tourists stopped coming and prices rose, both lost their jobs. Now they live with relatives in New Jersey. New York is called the city that never sleeps. But wallets have been empty for a long time. Average rent is over $4,000 a month. Food prices are high. Wages have not gone up. Seniors on fixed incomes struggle with healthcare and groceries. Times Square and Brooklyn Bridge now show more than a few closed stores. They show a city slowly losing its energy. Once people came to New York for opportunities. Now, opportunities are leaving the city. On the West Coast, Los Angeles is in crisis too. Think of Venice Beach. The sun still shines. The waves still crash. But the boardwalk is lined with tents instead of music and skateboarders. Sleeping bags dry in the sun. Clothes hang on fences like outdoor laundry. What was once a tourist paradise now looks like a disaster movie. Los Angeles is America's biggest import gateway. Over 40% of goods from Asia used to pass through its ports. But tariffs raised costs and cut shipments. Each missing container meant fewer jobs for dockworkers, truck drivers, and warehouse staff. One man's brother in East LA drove a cargo truck. After shipments dropped, the company cut shifts and laid off workers. He lost his job. For retirees, the pain is even worse. They used to buy cheap imports like vegetables from Mexico or fish from Asia. Now one basket of groceries can cost $150. That equals a week's worth of medicine. Hollywood still sells dreams on the screen. But only blocks away, families crowd into cheap motels. Tents line the sidewalks. The wealthy are leaving for cheaper states like Texas and Arizona. Those left behind are middle-class and poor families who cannot afford to move. If Los Angeles looks this bad, what about Chicago? Chicago is the agricultural heart of America. Illinois has endless corn and soybean fields. But families in Chicago struggle to buy basic food. Milk and bread cost more, even while the state produces so much. It is a cruel irony. Living in the middle of America's breadbasket, yet paying some of the highest prices. Just imagine this. A suburban mother in Chicago is pushing a shopping cart through Walmart. Before, $100 could fill the basket. Meat, milk, vegetables, and even snacks for the kids. Now, that same money only buys half. The monthly grocery bill for a family of 4 is now more than $1,000. Inflation is no longer just something people see on TV. It is now pain in the kitchen of every family. Why is this happening? One big reason is tariffs on imported fertilizers and farm equipment. Farmers in Illinois once relied on cheap fertilizer from abroad. Now, they have to pay very high prices. The same is true for tractors and harvesters. Imported parts cost much more. Many small farms have closed. Production is down. Costs are up. And people in Chicago must pay more for food, even higher than in states that cannot grow corn at all. Chicago, once called the Windy City, now feels a different kind of wind. Not the breeze in Millennium Park. Not the air from Lake Michigan. But the wind of high prices. It blows away every dollar of wages, every pension, and every bit of savings. The middle-class dream of a safe and happy life has been lost in a tariff storm. Right in a place where food is grown in abundance, people now count every package of noodles. Every can of soup. The Chicago wind has never felt so cold. Not because of winter, but because of the empty shopping cart. If Chicago, the farming capital, suffers like this, what about Detroit? Detroit once thrived on the car industry. But with tariffs cutting the auto supply chain, does the city have any chance left? A few years ago, the media said Detroit is back. After bankruptcy, small auto plants were reopening. Thousands of jobs were promised. People believed Motor City could rise again. But that hope was short. One small assembly plant outside Detroit had reopened after years. It hired over 400 workers. Most had lost their jobs during the 2008 crisis. But before the first year was over, the factory shut down again. Why? Tariffs. Imported parts like chips and brakes cost 20% to 30% more. Small factories could not survive. Big companies like Ford and GM managed by moving production to Mexico or Canada. But small factories had no choice. The sign that once said now hiring now said closed until further notice. Hundreds of workers lined up for unemployment. Neighborhoods that were bright became dark again. Detroit tried to recover. But tariffs pushed the city back into the past. Houses that were rebuilt now carry for sale signs. Small stores that depended on workers' salaries are closing again. Detroit is now called a living museum of old cars. The streets are filled with old Fords and Chevys. But there are no jobs left to build new ones. It is ironic. The city that once symbolized Made in USA is now paying the price of protectionist taxes. The dream machine started but had to be shut down. Detroit wants to move forward. But tariffs push it back. Now Motor City is once again stuck, looking at an uncertain future through its rearview mirror. If Detroit, the industrial heart, could not escape this cycle, what about Portland? Once the city of creativity and coffee, can it survive the wave of homelessness and tariffs? If San Francisco was the city of sleeping bags, Portland has become the city of tents. People even get free Wi-Fi from abandoned coffee shops. A joke online says a cup of Starbucks costs less than renting a corner of sidewalk for a tent. It sounds funny, but it is also very sad. Portland was once called a hipster paradise. Creative young people filled the city. There were coffee roasters, craft breweries, vinyl shops, and farmers markets. But when tariffs hit imports like coffee, timber, and handmade goods, everything collapsed. A cappuccino that once cost $3.50 now costs over $6. A shop selling handmade wooden chairs closed because wood became too expensive. The paradise disappeared. Only a homeless capital was left behind. When creative young people leave for Seattle, Austin, or Canada, Portland is left empty. The streets are quiet. Farmers markets have only a few stalls. Older middle-class people who retired here ask themselves, did we come to enjoy nature or to watch parks turn into tent cities? It is sad to see a city once proud of its creativity now only creating tent camps. The meme online is true. Portland went from hipster paradise to homeless capital in just one presidential term. And if Portland, the city of art and lifestyle, has fallen so far, what about Seattle? Can it still shine as a tech city in the middle of tariffs and homelessness? Seattle is known for gray skies. But the grayness today is in people's wallets. Housing prices have gone up more than 40% in 5 years. At the same time, incomes are flat or falling. That means families pay much more for housing while earning the same or less. Some thought working in a tech city would be enough. But reality shows it is not. Tech giants like Amazon and Microsoft moved jobs to cheaper places like Texas or India. Why? Because import duties on parts and electronics raised costs. Companies tried to survive. Workers were left with bills they could not pay. Seattle was once proud as the capital of technology and opportunity. Now it is turning into a ghost town for the middle class. Coffee shops once full of tech workers are now half empty. Tents stand near bus stations. Downtown streets are filled with closed shops. A few years ago this was a dream city. Today it feels cold. Not the damp cold of rain, but the cold of unpaid bills at the end of the month. When you walk under Seattle's gray sky, you may think the rain will stop. But the bills never stop coming. Even Seattle, home of big tech companies, is caught in a storm of tariffs and homelessness. So what about Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love? A woman in South Philly said she no longer recognizes her street. Every time she comes back from the market, she passes rows of tents near her grocery store. Brotherly love sounds warm, but on the sidewalks people fight for a place to sleep. Philadelphia once thrived on retail and imports. Clothing, shoes, and electronics kept the city busy. But tariffs made all of them more expensive. A shirt that once cost $25 now costs $40. The supermarket that was always crowded is now almost empty. Family-owned shops, the heart of Philly's streets, are closing down. Busy markets now show only "for lease" signs, like life has been paused. The people hit hardest are retirees. Nearly 15% of the city's population is over 65. They live on pensions and food stamps. But when the price of meat, vegetables, and medicine goes up, those food stamps are not enough. The proud slogan, "City of Brotherly Love," now feels like a bitter joke. In the city center, homeless people wait in line at soup kitchens. Right across the street, fancy restaurants still sell $70 steaks. Brotherhood is no longer hugs and kindness. It is people fighting for the last loaf of bread on a discount shelf. If Philadelphia, birthplace of the Declaration of Independence, cannot keep its promise of fairness, what about Houston? Houston is America's energy capital. It pumps out millions of barrels of oil every day. But can it still fuel the American dream for its workers? The city was once filled with tall buildings of ExxonMobil, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips. But tariffs on imported steel and aluminum have slowed the oil and gas industry. No cheap steel means no new pipelines. No aluminum means no new drilling rigs. When infrastructure stops, jobs disappear. People thought Houston would benefit when energy prices rose. But the opposite happened. Small businesses are closing. Workers are losing jobs. The cost of living keeps rising. You see the paradox in supermarkets. Gas stations are full of fuel, but people struggle to buy meat and milk. Neighborhoods once full of oil workers now have abandoned homes. Shopping malls that used to be packed are empty. Tents line the highways. Houston, we have a problem. The phrase once came from space. Now it describes life in Texas. If Houston, with all its oil, is running out of energy for its people, what about Las Vegas? Imagine a weekend on the Las Vegas Strip. The neon lights still shine. Music still blasts from casinos. Billboards still promise million-dollar jackpots. But just 2 blocks away, there are tents and homeless people. 2 different worlds side by side. Las Vegas, the city of illusions, cannot hide its crisis. Tourism has collapsed. After tariffs, prices rose. Inflation made people cut back. Middle-class families, once the lifeblood of Vegas, now spend every dollar on rent, gas, and food. There is no money left for gambling. International tourists are also fewer. Airfare is too expensive. Services cost more. Casinos stay open, but tables are empty. Bartenders, waiters, taxi drivers, people who kept the city alive have lost their jobs. For them, Las Vegas is not the city of lights. It is the city of unpaid bills. Vegas still sells dreams in casinos. But on the streets, thousands live in tents. Billboards shout, "Win big tonight." But most people lose the game of rising costs. Neon lights reflect on wet streets. Tourists take photos. A few feet away, the homeless curl up in blankets. Las Vegas never sleeps, but the dreams of its people are now nightmares. From New York to San Francisco, from Detroit to Las Vegas, 10 great American cities are at risk of decline. They once symbolized the American dream. Now they face becoming ghost towns. Tariffs and homelessness cast a dark shadow across the country. The scariest part is not the tents or the empty streets. It is the slow disappearance of the American dream. The belief that hard work would bring stability is fading. What about you? Do you live in one of these cities? Have you seen the homeless crisis or ghost town streets? Do you think tariffs really protect America, or do they just make ordinary people poorer? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story may help others understand this reality. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. This video is based on news reports, expert analysis, and real stories. It is not an absolute truth, but a perspective to help start discussion. Always compare with official information. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video.